Part 135. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1341. Zhong Wengzhou was stunned and noticed a sentence in Feng Qingyun's words, no father or mother. Yes, we are all children without a father and a mother since childhood. Feng Qingyun never denied his past, with a hint of cunning in his eyes. I have a sister, Tianjun Tianzi has my brother-in-law and Uncle Lu, but Guancheng and Guanyu are different. They have been living on the streets and homeless since they were young. They don't have any relatives or elders. When my sister met them, Guanyu and Guancheng's younger brother were both dying of illness. My sister saved his life and brought the two brothers back and adopted them at home. Speaking of this, Feng Qingyun sighed. Although Guancheng worked very hard and studied very hard after coming to our house, and now he has good medical skills and is good at washing clothes and cooking, but his life is not well. There are always some whimsical people who want to harm him, which has made his marriage very difficult, and he has not even mentioned a wife yet, but he himself is very open-minded and would rather lack than indulge in anything. Zhong Wengzhou's cheeks turned red and she whispered, Qingyun, why are you telling me this? Feng Qingyun refused to admit that she mentioned Guancheng on purpose, and said with a smile, who said we are good friends? I am very excited to see my relatives, so I will tell you about my family situation. She lowered her voice and whispered in Zhong Wengzhou's ear, didn't you secretly tell me that you admire Master Jin Ruoku the most? You said that he and your grandfather were good friends, and he was also your biological grandfather, but their whereabouts are unknown, and I also let me tell you secretly, Guancheng is Master Jin's junior disciple, and he has been studying with Master Jin for several years. The reason why she protects Zhong Wengzhou in the art troupe is because of Jin Ruoku. Although she didn't study very seriously, those old people gave her guidance on her homework, and she always remembered it. She is the daughter of a poor peasant, with a good family background. Her sister and brother-in-law are both famous, and their large group of relatives and friends cannot be ignored. However, Zhong Wengzhou has never been able to get rid of the label of a capitalist's child, and her situation is certainly not as good as hers. Zhong Wengzhou was shocked after hearing Feng Qingyun's words, and lost her voice. What did you say? You have heard it, so I won't repeat it. So as not to be overheard by others, Feng Qingyun pursed her lips and smiled, revealing the deep dimples on her cheeks. So to put it this way, we are actually a family. If Zhong Wengzhou and Guancheng become revolutionary comrades in the future, they will become even more like a family. Feng Qingyun rolled her big eyes. The more she thought about it, the more beautiful it became. This was very similar to a certain nephew. Zhong Wengzhou didn't get the answer she wanted, so she tried hard to recall what Feng Qingyun had said before. She couldn't help but pull her to a secluded place and whispered, Grandpa, are you okay? Feng Qingyun nodded, very good. The place where Master Jin is transferred is our hometown, a few steps away from our home, and he is well taken care of by Guancheng. Apart from my sister, Guancheng's cooking is the best. Master Jin's thing, he basically does everything himself, although I don't know what's going on in your family, but you don't have to worry about Master Jin. Zhong Wengzhou cried with joy, my mother was most worried about my grandfather, but we had too much time to take care of ourselves. My grandparents left the mainland 7 or 8 years ago, and there was no news after they went to Hong Kong. Later, my father, who had severed ties with my grandparents, did not want me and my mother. He disappeared into the vast sea of people, so my mother had no choice but to cut off the relationship with him and remarry someone else to save our lives. Later, we heard that something had happened to my grandpa, and we had no way to leave our place and went to the capital to inquire about my grandpa, so we were admitted to the capital cultural troupe. I am very happy. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1342. Zhong Wengzhou's 18 years of life have been really rough. The grandparents went abroad to seek refuge and were accused of defecting. The whereabouts of the biological father were unknown. The mother and daughter were dependent on each other and suffered from the consequences of their parentage. After listening to her words, Feng Qingyun's first thought was this, and then said, "You came to the capital art troupe to find out about your grandfather? I never heard you mention it." Zhong Wenxiu came from Jinling. She knew very well that her mother Jin Dingxiang currently worked in Jinling. Jin Dingxiang remarried a well-known local doctor, and Zhong Wenxiu had the opportunity to join the army. Her stepfather saved countless lives, so he joined the army. However, there were fellow soldiers who joined the army with her, so the past could not be hidden from anyone. Only after I got here did I realize how naive my original idea was. Zhong Wenxiu smiled bitterly. The army is strictly managed and there are few opportunities to go out. Even if I just follow the crowd and take a bus to the city, I won't be able to follow the crowd. Like a fly on my head, I have no way to find out. Thank you, King Yun, for letting me get the news about my grandfather." Feng Qingyun sighed, "If I hadn't seen Guancheng today, I wouldn't have been able to remember this matter. After all, I've been away from home for more than 2 years." "Then should I be grateful to Comrade Guancheng?" Zhong Wenxiu asked. She asked this not because she believed Feng Qingyun's blame on Guancheng, but because she felt that this was the reason why she treated her well. It seemed that after she knew that her grandfather was Jin Ruoku, she was very kind to her and would not let others bully her. "I didn't expect that I would take advantage of my grandfather, after all, they had never met." Feng Qingyun smiled and said, "Of course, you must thank him and establish a good relationship first. In the future, you can write letters to Guancheng under the guise of my name, but actually send them to your grandpa to connect your ancestors and grandchildren. Is it okay?" "Can I contact my grandpa?" Zhong Wenxiu was surprised. "Of course, in my name, it is natural to send a letter to my hometown. Send it to Guancheng, tell him and it will be delivered to Master Jin. You can do this in the future when you send money or things to Master Jin." Feng Qingyun quickly thought of a second move. "You can also send your grandpa your photo to let him see what it means to have a daughter in my family." Zhong Wenxiu was very happy to hear this. "I also want to write a letter to my mother and tell her that I have my grandfather's whereabouts. You can write a letter now and accompany me to Comrade Zhang Yun's house. Before my sister and brother-in-law leave, give it to Guancheng to deliver to Master Jin in order to arrange the marriage of the eldest nephew, Feng Qingyun. It's pretty much a no-brainer." "Is it possible?" Zhong Wenxiu couldn't believe it. Of course Feng Qingyun patiently repeated what she had said before. After hearing this, Zhong Wenxiu took Feng Qingyun back to the dormitory. After writing the letter, they sealed it carefully and stuffed Zhong Wenxiu's saved salary into the envelope. Then the two of them rushed to the family compound happily, and happened to bump into the Lu family members who were leaving. It's great. If you're a little late, you won't be able to catch up." Feng Qingyun breathlessly patted her chest, called Guancheng aside, secretly stuffed Guancheng with the letter Zhong Wenxiu had given her on the way here, briefly talked about Zhong Wenxiu's life experience, and finally patted her arm. She originally wanted to he tapped Guancheng on the shoulder, but he was too short, so he had to tap Guancheng on the arm instead. Cheng, take advantage of the opportunity. Don't miss it before it comes again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1343. For Guancheng, this is a golden pie falling from the sky. He put the letter into his inner pocket and patted his chest. "Don't worry, Aunt, I will definitely thank you if I get my wish in the future. This is a great matchmaker, a considerate matchmaker. Why are Aunt so considerate?" He was so moved that on the way back to Feng Qingyun, Feng Qingxiu told him Zhong Wenxiu's age and some conclusions she drew from the conversation. Zhong Wenxiu, 18 years old, is a capitalist girl. Her registered residence before joining the army was Jinling. Her place of origin is unknown, and her parents' family is unknown. Feng Qingyun whispered in an elderly manner, "Who calls you my eldest nephew? If I don't worry, who should? My eldest nephew, Wenxiu, is really good. Anyway, he is only worse than my sister, just like Xiao Yu. Well, there are quite a few soldiers in the army who are keeping an eye on our art troupe. Wenxiu is gentle and gets a lot of attention, so you have to work harder." Guancheng nodded heavily and said repeatedly, "Don't worry. How can you let me rest assured? Wenxiu joins the army and you go back to your hometown, far apart. It's unreliable to rely solely on letters. Moreover, the art troupe has regulations that you are not allowed to fall in love without mentioning sex. You are different from Tianjun Xiao Yu, and the road is blocked. Long. Even so, I can't give up." Guancheng finally met a lesbian who he fell in love with at first sight. It's not his style to retreat when faced with difficulties. He has to find a way to change the current situation. He can't hide it forever. There was no use for all his skills in the Wanglu brigade. He and Feng Qingyun returned to everyone, and Feng Qingyun pulled Zhong Wenxiu to say goodbye to everyone. It's almost 5 o'clock, and the sky is dark. "I won't worry about you two girls going back together," Feng Qingxiu said quickly, pushing Zhuang in her arms into Lu Jiang's arms. "Akin and I will see them off. You wait for us at the gate of the army." Lu Jiang appraised the appearance and knew that something was going on again. "Okay, you go and come back quickly." With his eldest nephew accompanying him, Lu Jiang was not worried. Instead, he had to take care of the 4 children in front of him first. Zhong Wenxiu's face was a little red. On the way back, she lowered her head and only looked at her feet. If Feng Qingxiu hadn't been so enthusiastic and kept pulling her to talk, and Feng Qingyun would make jokes, she would have never said a word. "Wenxiu, can I call you that?" Feng Qingxiu suddenly asked halfway through. Of course Zhong Wenxiu raised his head and smiled. Although she is not a particularly beautiful woman, her appearance is inferior to that of Feng Qingyun, but the gentle and watery energy in her body is something that Feng Qingyun does not have, making people feel like a spring breeze. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "You and I hit it off right away. From now on, we will write letters to each other, and we will be together with Xiaoun." "Okay." Zhong Wenxiu is not an ungrateful person. Feng Qingxiu's smile became even sweeter, so sweet that Zhong Wenxiu almost got dizzy. She was so young and beautiful, so unlike someone who was almost 30 years old, she was still as refined and outstanding as a girl. In fact, the two sisters did this because they saw that Zhong Wenxiu had a good impression of Guancheng. Guancheng was not the only one who fell in love at first sight. The most important thing is to let the good impression they have towards each other continue. Falling in love at first sight, falling in love again, understanding character and talent, and having similar interests are the true love and marriage. Whether a good relationship can be achieved in the end depends on Guancheng and Zhong Wenxiu themselves. I feel so uncomfortable that I overslept. 10 updates are completed. Tickets for the game. It's the end of the month. Please vote for me. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1344. With lifelong events taking over, Guancheng couldn't wait to return home after the new year. After getting the consent of Lu Jiang and Feng Qingxiu, he planned to buy a ticket home directly from the capital. He first handed Zhong Wenxiu's letter to Jin Ruoku, and then discussed with the old people, himself, "Which skill do you use to find a job?" Yes, he plans to find a job, and he wants to find a job in the capital. Although it is difficult to find a job due to his household registration, he is not afraid. The country has always been lacking talents in certain technical fields, and he knew very well that this was a good choice to start with. Lu Zhang had already learned the reason from his wife, and couldn't help but feel very funny. Apart from being funny, he also understood Guancheng's impatience. After he met his wife, wasn't he also anxiously urging the matchmaker to introduce them to meet? I am afraid that I will lose my share if I am one step too late. If you find a job in the capital, how will Wengzhou communicate with you in the future? Feng Qingxiu asked. Although the content may be that Zhong Wengzhou wants to contact Jin Ruoku, Guancheng is smart enough to seize the opportunity and start communicating with Zhong Wengzhou in the letter. He will not really let Zhong Wengzhou use the guise of Feng Qingyun to give Jin Ruoku write a letter. Guancheng smiled and said, "Why not? Write to me first, and I will forward it home. Au is at home." Well, for a lifelong event, all the brothers have been used. When Lu Zhang raised his thumb, Guancheng then added, "Besides, I don't have to send it to Au. I can send it to Grandpa Lu, or I can send it directly to Master and the others. Our brigade does not prohibit these elderly people, and contacting relatives and friends is probably not prohibited in other places, but my aunt didn't mention it in front of Comrade Zhong Wengzhou." Therefore, he was very grateful to Feng Qingyun. Feng Qingxiu couldn't help but said, I know, just know it yourself. You have grown into a man. I believe you can be responsible for your own life. Before getting on the train, come with us to visit us. If you know friends in the capital, you may have to ask them for help when you are looking for a job. Guancheng is very talented, but the current situation is like this. Without going through the back door, it will be difficult for him to find a suitable job in the capital with his level of education. Especially since he has a rural registered permanent residence in another place, it will be even more difficult. Guancheng naturally wanted it, and smiled brightly, "Thank you, Auntie." He knows that given his ability, it will take a lot of effort to achieve his goals, and he may not always be able to achieve his goals. After visiting Wang Xinchen, Guoming, Lu Shui, Zhou Sueshan, and others one by one, since Guancheng would not come to Beijing until the next year, they did not mention finding a job for Guancheng. Next, they went to visit Chen Swiniang and Zheng Jinrui. The couple both worked in a department store, and watched them waiting at the door of the department store when they got off work, waiting for exactly the same thing. Zheng Jinrui and Chen Swiniang came out side by side and saw the Lu family. Not to mention their excitement, Chen Swiniang arrived in front of them in 3 steps and 2 steps at a time. After taking a closer look, they saw that there was still a missing baby. "Where is Zibao?" As she spoke, she picked up Lu Dundun, one of the triplets, and looked at the second bear hugging her thigh with curiosity. Feng Qingxiu pursed her lips and smiled, "Zibao hasn't come back from the old leader's house yet, so we'll come to see you first. How have you been lately? We've been exchanging letters but haven't met each other. This is your first time having triplets. See you there." Zheng Jinrui invited them to his home and said first, "Of course it's great, it's great." Chen Swiniang's reaction was to look at him angrily, but he smiled and felt very sweet in his heart. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1345. When they arrived at Chen Swiniang's home, they talked about Guancheng's preparations to work in the capital. Feng Qingxiu asked Chen Swiniang to take good care of Guancheng in the future. After all, Chen Swiniang and Zheng Jinrui had been here for a few years and worked in a department store. Ripe. Zheng Jinrui slapped his thigh and said, "You don't need to trouble others about this. I can get a spot." As soon as Lu Zhang and others were stunned, Chen Swiniang said, "I know that you have a wide range of contacts. Let alone one child's job, there are 10 and hundreds of jobs. You can all do it, but troublesome outsiders are different from my own family. Your status is it's different, and it attracts different attention. There's no need for outsiders to judge him just because he's looking for a job for his children. Lao Zheng has been working in a department store for several years, and has no other clues. He just relies on convenience and communicates with various agencies. The relationship with the factory is very good, and there is no personal interest relationship, but it is quite simple to find a job for your child. Sisters Chen Swinyoung and Feng Qingxiu have a deep love for each other, and they are especially fond of Zibao. Naturally, they don't want Feng Qingxiu and his wife to be blamed for arranging work for Guancheng, and they don't want to see Guancheng alone get into trouble in the capital, so she said you have to be sincere. Feng Qingxiu glanced at Guancheng. Thank you soon, Uncle Zheng and Aunt Chen. Guancheng immediately thanked him with a very respectful attitude. Zheng Jinrui asked him what aspect he excelled in, and learned that he was the most proficient in medical skills, and he was also very good in physics, and he had a good understanding of mechanical structures and so on. After thinking about it, he thought for a while and said, "You studied medicine, but you didn't graduate from a serious medical university. It's not easy to arrange. Scientific research has nothing to do with me. I am very familiar with the director of the machinery factory. Their factory is short of mechanical talents. There is a real shortage. There are many machines imported from abroad, but few people in the factory understand it. They have been putting it aside. Hey, this is a joke. You go home first, and when you come back, find me. I'll take you around the factory. As long as you show your ability in machinery, I won't mention it, then the factory director will have to do it. I beg you to stay." Guancheng said embarrassedly, "Although I have learned it, it is only on paper and has not been practiced in practice. There is no way. In our hometown, we usually have no contact with real objects at all, so it is not as good as you said. So, can it be done? You have to see the machinery in the factory and understand all the parts and structures. That's great. There are not many people who understand the theory now. Those who have gone abroad are more proficient. Our country is relatively far behind in this aspect, but how many people who have gone abroad are safe now?" After hearing this, Zheng Jinrui felt a little more favorable towards Guancheng. He was pragmatic and said, "It's better to limit yourself to theory. Then I will take you to Factory Director Niu under the guise of learning. When you figure out the structure of all the machinery, I will know what you are capable of, and it will be very logical." At this point, Zheng Jinrui lowered his voice. "You just said that you also know about ordnance manufacturing and other knowledge. Young man, if you work harder and perform well in the future, you might have a chance to enter an ordnance factory or an ordnance research institute." Guancheng's eyes lit up. Is it possible? He couldn't believe it. His family issues were so vague that it would be impossible to pass the political review in the first place. "How is it impossible?" Zheng Jinrui said categorically, not knowing Guancheng's life experience. "I know many seniors in the military, and I also understand the lack of talents in ordnance manufacturing. Many employees of the Ordnance Research Institute were transferred from other places." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1346. Zheng Jinrui didn't understand, but the Lu family knew very well and didn't want to take risks at this time. Lu Zhang waited for Zheng Jinrui to finish and said with a smile, "Young man can't be so ambitious. Find a job first and work hard for a few years. Whether you have a chance depends on your future performance." A few years later, Jinruoku and others were rehabilitated. How could they not support this disciple who took great care of them during their time of crisis? "Yes, Brother Zheng, don't give him such high hopes, so as not to be disappointed later," Feng Qingxiu said with a smile. Zheng Jinrui immediately made a sealing gesture. However, the silence did not affect his continued speech. Okay, You are right, the work has not been implemented yet, it is too far to talk about this, let's find a job first. The matter was basically settled in an understatement, with almost no effort. Guancheng once again saw the interpersonal relationship between his uncle and aunt, and he was immediately impressed with his admiration. Chen Swiniang saw the triplets for the first time. As usual, she pulled Feng Qingxiu to her bedroom and found 3 gold locks. The 3 styles were different in size, but they all had collars. Some were made of red gold with emerald green, and some were inlaid with emerald green. Precious stones, some embedded with Eastern beads. The gold is brilliant, the jewels are brilliant, they are all valuable things. Sister Xuaniang, what are you doing? Feng Qingxiu held her hand. Chen Xuaniang directly stuffed the collar and gold lock into Feng Qingxiu's hands. Old Zheng has been collecting some good things in private in the past 20 years. He gave them to me after we got married. 2 of the items here belong to him. Although the collection is different, I really can't find the exact same longevity lock. Lao Zheng and I don't have children, and we don't plan to adopt children in the future. Aren't the things I gave to our children? If I have a lucky baby, I can't give birth to triplets, lest they grow up and say I'm partial. Isn't Achi your child? It's more appropriate to leave it to him than to give it to my child. Although Chen Qi changed his name back to Hanya after returning to his parents, he still considered Chen Swiniang as his mother. Everyone in the Lu family took it for granted and often told him that he must be filial to Chen Swiniang when he grew up. Chen Swiniang smiled and said, "How can I forget him? I have kept all the things I gave him and will give them to him when he grows up." When it comes to dealing with her children, she knows it well. Feng Qingxiu couldn't refuse, so she could only accept it. Chen Swiniang took out another big baggage. The internal processing goods that I have saved recently are all kinds of things. Lao Zheng and I don't need them, and the Lu family doesn't need our subsidies. Take them all. There are still some things in them. There are new clothes I made for some of the children. It's almost the Chinese New Year and they should wear new clothes. Chen Swiniang was really good to her family. When she returned to the guest house in the evening, Feng Qingxiu was filled with emotion for Lu Zhang. We have no choice but to pay it back. We will ask our children to pay it back when they grow up. If they are not filial to Comrade Chen Swiniang, they will be spanked. Chen Swiniang and Zheng Jinrui have no children and will have to rely on these children to support them in their later years. Lu Zhang casually fiddled with 3 collars with gold locks, and suddenly frowned. What's wrong? Feng Qingxiu thought that she didn't see something she recognized, right? Sure enough, she saw Lu Zhang pick up one of the necklaces with dong beads embedded in it. This is the one I wore when I was a child. Now, there are 8 dong beads in total, and the 3rd one has scratches. I scratched it? This is our home. The old thing passed down from our ancestors is the dowry of that princess. You can tell by looking at the dong bead on it. Only the royal family of the Qing dynasty would own dong bead products. I remember that it was a gift from God. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1347. After hearing this, Feng Qingxiu took it over and took a look. The scratches on the 3rd bead were very deep. They were not scratched by ordinary friction. They should have been scratched with something sharp, which greatly disfigured the bead. Because of the level issue of that princess, the dongju on this necklace is not of a high level, probably a 3rd-class dongju. Do you remember it so clearly? Of course, most of that princess's dowry has been recorded. After Lu Zhang explained, he pointed at the scratched dongju and said, I told you that I was very naughty when I was a child, I had a very bad temper, and I would get messy when I was angry. I threw and smashed things. I don't remember why I was angry. I just remember that I took my mother's awl and scratched it on the beads. I hurt the beads and I couldn't place them properly. Feng Qingxiu looked at him. Did you cut your hand? This situation is most likely to happen when children are not accurate in their hands. Lu Zhang chuckled and stopped talking. This expression looks very similar to that of Er Xiong. They are truly a father and son. Early the next morning, they left the child at home under the watch of the security guard and Lieutenant Zi Guanyu. After sending him to Guancheng and getting on the bus, the couple walked around the nearby black market a few times, sold some grain, and exchanged grain for some old stuff. Not far from the black market, Lu Zhang was grabbed by an old man. I have been paying attention to you in the black market for a long time. I know that you have food in your hands and want to exchange for those old things. Boy, you are very discerning, and I am also discerning. Unfortunately, it cannot be used as food or clothing. How about we make a deal? Lu Zhang looked back at him. What deal? The dry, thin, stained little old man laughed. I want grain and oil. I don't want anything else, just grain and oil. Coarse grain, fine grain, or any oil will do. But if you give me 10 pounds of fine grain, I'll give you a treasure. Feng Qingxiu said nothing, and Lu Zhang said, why should I believe you? Who knows if you are actually reporting in the name of trading? The little old man slapped his thigh and said, boy, what you said is wrong. If I reported it, wouldn't I also report myself? My old man's background is not good. He relies on the black market to earn a living, but he will not report his parents. I've seen a lot of people like you, who only trade for old things on the black market if they live well and have money. It's you people who will get rich in the future. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu looked at each other and smiled, but did not answer. The little old man felt a little bored, paused, and continued, well, if you don't believe me, I'm afraid you'll report me for deliberately exchanging old things for food. After all, I have a criminal record and was caught twice. Fortunately, my old man made a quick decision and threw the things far away. He had nothing on him. They had no evidence, so they had to let me go. They monitored me for a while, but I was starving. You choose a place, I will show up first, and you will. How about you show up and trade with me after checking that there is no danger around you? This is feasible, and many people doing black market transactions do this. Lu Zhang chose a relatively remote and open place. In the suburbs, they hid in a place where others could not see them. They saw the little old man sneaking up with a big basket on his back. After observing that no one was following him, the couple discovered body. Okay, keep your word. The old man sat down on the ground and took out many things from his backpack. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu's eyes were immediately opened. Just by looking at the things he took out, they knew that the old man's past wealth was extraordinary. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1348. Feng Qingxiu always felt that the old man looked familiar, which was why she didn't stop Lu Zhang from trading with him. Seeing a Ryukil hidden flower Pisces plate that the old man took out, Feng Qingxiu suddenly remembered it and said, "Old sir, are you Mr. Chiao?" Mr. Chiao was famous in Beijing and Tianjin back then. Mr. Chiao-san is called Chiao-san. He was a well-known road tycoon in the 1920s and 1930s. He did many bad things and several good things. All in all, he is a character whose faults outweigh his merits. It is said that he was the adopted son of an eunuch and the nephew of the old eunuch. With the large amount of property left to him by the old eunuch and his fierceness, he became one of the figures in the Taoist society. He once married 4 wives and 1 wife. He had a lot of lovers and gave birth to many children. After the founding of the People's Republic of China, he was liquidated. His wife and children separated from him, and he was reduced to living next to a cesspool and sweeping streets and digging toilets. It's a sympathetic experience, but it's deserved. People like Father Lu, Uncle Su, Jin Ruoku, Wen Ruyu, and others were all innocent and implicated, but Jiao San was not. This Ryukil plate appeared at an overseas auction decades later. It sold for a sky-high price of hundreds of millions at that time, because this plate was something used by the royal family. The owner said that it was from his father's generation in the 1970s. Received it from Jiao San's hand. However, this Jiao San is very good at living, and he will not die until he is over 100 years old, which exactly corresponds to the saying good people will not live long, but will cause trouble for thousands of years. In other words, the old man in front of him still has more than 20 years of good life. Jiao San was stunned and looked up at Feng Qingxiu. I didn't expect that after 20 years, someone would actually recognize me, Jiao San. Incredible, incredible. After 20 years, except for old neighbors, who knows Jiao San? Feng Qingxiu smiled slightly. We are even more incredible. Jiao San knew what she meant and raised her long white eyebrows. Old man, I have lived a worthwhile life. I followed my father into the palace when I was a child, and met the Empress Dowager Cixi and Emperor Guangxu. When I grew up, I became famous for decades. I want a wife, a son, and a few daughters. No matter if they have severed ties with me, they are the old man's father anyway. Lu Zhang was reminded by his wife and also thought of Jiao San. The reason why he saved his life after the founding of the People's Republic of China was that he had supported the anti-Japanese war. Just think openly. Think openly, otherwise you will be dead a long time ago. Jiao San pointed to the various things in front of him. How about it? What my old man brought out is not an insult to you, right? I also know that these things are not what it's worth, but that's now, it's hard to say before or in the future. They are indeed good things, even the jewelry is of top quality. Feng Qingxiu squatted and fiddled with it for a moment. Make a price. Jiao San raised his thumbs. Okay, Kuai, I like Kuai people. I noticed that your transactions are not sloppy at all, unlike some people who are just playing tricks, so I came to you. You said you like it, so don't be nagging, Lu Zhang said. 100 yuan, 50 kilograms of fine grain or food stamps, and at least 5 kilograms of oil. My old man can't carry more than that. Jiao San shook his head and sighed. If you give me 10 more kilograms of grain, I will give you another one, a treasure. What treasure? These things in front of him can be called treasures, but Feng Qingxiu knew that Jiao San still had many good things in his hands. 10 years later, he would rely on selling these things and the private treasures for more than 10 years before his death. The gold and silver are soft and comfortable. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1349. Jiao San didn't say anything, but still sat cross-legged. You have to give me what I want first. Lu Zhang glanced at his wife, and she took out the things Jiao San asked for from her backpack, and also took some extra things he didn't ask for, 20 kilograms of rice, 30 kilograms of noodles, 2 strips of bacon and a 5-kilogram can of soya oil. I'll give you the money later. Jiao San smiled brightly. You guys are doing things grandly. My old man lives next to a cesspit. I'm really not afraid of being smelled of meat. Listening to what he said, he actually enjoyed living next to a cesspool. Feng Qingxiu was speechless. Now that the deal was concluded, she asked Lu Zhang to put the things into the backpack. Where is the treasure you mentioned? Let's talk about it first. 10 pounds of fine grain. Jiao San happily took out a wooden box from his arms. Just looking at the dark wooden box was already worth a lot, not to mention the treasure inside. Feng Qingxiu took the box and opened it directly. Lu Zhang took a look and saw that a full green jade ruyi was really not a priceless treasure to them. That's it. Feng Qingxiu was a little disappointed. She thought it was something of special cultural relic value, but it turned out to be a jadeite ruyi, full of green ice, cotton, and impurities. Although it was also very valuable, it no longer attracted her too much attention. Great interest. This is Ruyi that the Empress Dowager Cixi often plays with. What is it if it's not a treasure? She also has an emerald magic pestle, but it's a pity that she didn't bring it out. Jiao San knew that Feng Qingxiu had seen a lot of good things. I think back then, a young apprentice broke the jadeite Ruyi of a friend of my father's and made a fortune just from a piece of jade he kept privately. Don't think I'm joking. Jadeite has been popular for so long, and one day it will be the same as before. Scenery. Yes, you are right. Feng Qingxiu collected the things and gave her 10 kilograms of rice. One of Sixi's favorite things was sold at a low price by Jiao San. Jiao San hummed a little tune and put the grain and oil into the basket, carried it on his shoulders, turned back to the couple and said, I can see that you like to buy and trade these things, let me show you a way. Feng Qingxiu asked which way it was, and Jiao San told them an address and said, go there and find a man named Jin Laokai. His ancestor was Lord Bile. Lord Bile during the Qianlong period. Unfortunately, he disappeared long ago. It has been passed down from generation to generation. He is a descendant, has no children, and has hidden a lot of good things. 10 years ago, he relied on gold and silver to buy high-priced food to tide over the difficulties. He and I are old friends, and we know each other very well, but outsiders may not know. You said I directed you to go there, he must be willing to trade with you. Who cares about those things passed down from our ancestors now? It's important for us to survive. This address was actually behind the old man Hong Zanjun. Remembering how they borrowed the old man's house during confinement, Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu had not lost contact with the old man these years, so they visited Hong Zanjun first and then Jin Laokai. This time, I brought my children with me. Fu Bao, your mother lived in Grandpa Hong's house when she gave birth to you. You have to thank Grandpa Hong. After listening to Feng Qingxiu's instructions, Fu Bao agreed and kept it in his heart seriously. When he arrived at Hong Zanjun's house, he called out Grandpa one after another. Lu Erxiang joined in the fun and said loudly, hello Grandpa, my name is Lu Erxiang. Okay, everything is fine, Hong Zanjun was very happy to see them early in the morning. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1350. No one dislikes children who repay their kindness, especially old people like Hong Zanjun. He just lent his house to Feng Qingxiu for confinement. He has really gained a lot in these years. Every year he receives food, clothing, and money coupons from Feng Qingxiu. This time when he came to the capital, he did not forget to come and see him. Really contented. I am an old man who can't wear or eat so many things, but I have used them all to save people. You have given birth to 5 children, and the expenses are not small. Don't keep sending them to me, Hong Zanjun said, not forgetting to mention he used the things sent by others to help others. After all, he was borrowing flowers to offer to Buddha. He had to say it. This was Feng Qingxiu's credit. I am old and have a bad memory. I always forget to tell you one thing. Now that I see you, I'll tell you now while I still remember. Feng Qingxiu asked what happened, and Hong Zanjun said, there is a little girl who went to the mountains and countryside and was assigned to your hometown. Her name is Jojo. She is a poor child. Please ask your father and fellow villagers to take care of her. Jojo, that little girl who is always crying? Guan Yu's eyes widened. Yes, her name is Jojo. She will be 16 years old after the Chinese New Year. Speaking of her, Hong Zanjun couldn't help but sigh, this child is pitiful. Her father doesn't care for her and her mother doesn't love her since she was born. It's all because of her grandma. I brought her up. Her grandmother was an old lady with small feet in the old society. Her husband died early. Now she has to rely on her children and grandchildren to support her. Although she has a large group of sons and daughters, there are too many people and many wrongdoings. Those sons and daughters-in-law will not give them to them if they are unhappy. It was very difficult for her to eat, and it was very difficult to pull Jojo around. I had a mouthful to eat, but left half of it for the two of them. I also taught the child some boxing and kicking skills to strengthen his body and not be bullied, and finally the child was free from illness. The disaster area has grown. Guan Yu groaned, Jojo can also box and kick? I can't tell. Grandpa Hong, are you lying to us? Although Jojo didn't cry much when she came to our house to play, I have seen her cry in front of others. Many times, she looked so weak that she could be blown away by a gust of wind. You must have lied to me if you said she knew how to fight. Upon hearing this, Hong Zanjun knew that Jojo was familiar with the Lu family, and his heart immediately relaxed. Jojo told me in her letter that she met many good people in the Wanglu Brigade, and it seems that your family is among them. Jojo is very defensive, and those who can make her take the initiative to get close must be good people. Feng Qingxiu suddenly realized, at that time, I saw that Jojo's walking and demeanor seemed to have a military style. It turned out that I learned it from you. That's why she said Jojo was very interesting, much more interesting than Zheng Huiwei. Guan Yu looked back at her, Auntie, do you know that Jojo knows Kung Fu? I can tell Feng Qingxiu, who often lived in the army, believed that she had such eyesight. Later, she also heard from Guancheng that Jojo beat up Wang Qinjun in the woods, which further confirmed the fact that Jojo's people cannot be recognized. He turned to Hong Zanjun and said, Uncle Hong, don't worry. Jojo is very good at our place. He is well behaved and obedient, and he is also very popular. Hong Zanjun nodded, I feel relieved when I hear you say that. I have always been afraid that she will report good things but not bad things. This child is soft and weak, and is used to crying to face the bullying around her. Seeing her cry, look, everyone will naturally think that she has been bullied and pity her. In fact, her temperament is not weak at all, she is just self-protective.